Welcome, everyone. My name is Tina, and I will be introducing and moderating today's session. The topic of today's webinar is Campus Alcohol Policy Evaluation Tool. Please note the views and opinions expressed as part of this presentation are those of the presenters and do not necessarily represent those of our funders or other organizations. Acknowledged. So I would now like to introduce our presenters for today. Dr. Cara Thompson is an associate professor in the Department of Psychology at St. Francis Xavier University in Nova Scotia. She is a research chair in substance use policy and prevention and the director of the Victor and Mona Dalliday Institute for Innovation in Health. Dr. Thompson leads the Substance Use and Health in Emerging Adulthood Lab, known as the SHE Lab, where her research explores the social and commercial determinants of youth mental health and substance use. Stephanie Cooper has worked alongside Cara for over 5 years as the SHE Lab manager. The goals of the SHE Lab are broadly to enhance health and wellness in emerging adulthood, advance evidence-based policy and practice, and support mental well-being and safer substance use. Cara and Stephanie are always open to connect, collaborate, and support work within these areas of expertise, and they'll share their contact details later in the presentation. So I will now invite Stephanie to share the slides and Cara to begin the presentation.
Thank you for the introduction, Tina. We're excited to be here with all of you today to launch our new campus alcohol policy evaluation tool. I'm sure most of you are here because you're either work in a campus or you're connected to a campus or alcohol use is somehow part of your work. Post-secondary, the transition to post-secondary education for young adults is a really critical developmental transition. It's marked by new independence and social exploration and shifting routines, as well as transition to the legal drinking age. And these factors, combined with things like social pressures and campus norms, make students uniquely vulnerable to alcohol use. And not surprisingly, rates of alcohol use tend to be highest among this age group, as are the harms. So the Canadian Post-Secondary Education Alcohol and Drug Use Survey collects data every 2 years on student substance use. The most recent iteration shows that alcohol use is about 60% of students have said they've used alcohol in the past month. And so we've seen a declining trend in alcohol use, which is encouraging, largely probably a result of shifting social norms around alcohol and a growing awareness of the harms associated with alcohol. But this is a really meaningful time, and post-secondary settings are a really influential environment that can educate students on alcohol-related harms, as well as provide supportive policies and targeted interventions that can reduce harms for students. So there's lots of factors that influence student alcohol use. At the individual level, students make decisions about drinking based on their attitudes and beliefs about alcohol, about their knowledge, about their whether they're using it to cope or have struggling with mental health. But student alcohol use is not only an individual choice. It's shaped by our environment and our norms and policies that surround students in these environments. And so the post-secondary institutions shape alcohol use and can shape the environment through things like their alcohol policies, through their regulations related to residents and events, through their control of availability and access of alcohol, as well as through their prevention programming. And so campus policies represented a really powerful and important lever for prevention of substance related harm for students. So the Campus Alcohol Policy Project, some of you may be familiar with. This tool builds off that. So I'm going to just walk people through what this project was and how this tool evolved out of it. So the Campus Alcohol Policy Project started back in 2021. It was funded by Research Nova Scotia. And we worked with 12 Atlantic Canadian universities to evaluate their alcohol policies relative to best practice. So the goal was really to increase the capacity of post-secondary institutions to implement evidence-based alcohol policies. So acknowledging that, those that working in this field are not alcohol policy experts, that someone is managing this policy probably off the side of their desk while they're managing the day-to-day responsibilities of student services, et cetera. And that maybe we can help support them in identifying their current policy strengths and their current policy weaknesses and giving them some recommendations that would help strengthen their policies. So that's what we did. We applied the CAPP methodology. So we applied the Canadian Alcohol Policy Evaluation methodology, which evaluates the provincial policies every few years. And using evidence from the literature and from alcohol experts across the country, we drafted a set of policy and practice indicators in 10 evidence-based domains. And then we extracted and verified all the campus alcohol policy data and scored each policy against best practice in each of these domains. There's more details about the methodology in the final report if you want to know more about that. So these were the results of that project. The 12 campuses are de-identified. We did not identify the campuses in the final report, but you can see that the average score, policy score for campuses was only 33%, with no campus quite reaching the half threshold. So they are doing some alcohol policies that are strong, but they are missing a lot of policies that could strengthen their overall approach to alcohol harm reduction. These are the domain scores. So in addition to getting a total score, all the campuses got domain scores. These are the average scores. So you can see that there's some domains that campuses do pretty well in and other areas where there's more work needed. So for example, the lowest domain was health and safety messages and the highest was policy enforcement. So what we took away from that project was that evidence-based policies are being poorly implemented across Atlantic Canadian campuses. They were outdated, they were piecemeal and spread across multiple documents in multiple locations. And many policies, even though campuses felt that they were doing them, they were not actually documented at any place. So policies were not being documented as they were done in practice. So while individual campus scores were low, one of the exciting things that we took away from this was that if you took all the best, highest scoring policies from across those 12 campuses and you put them all into a single campus, that average score jumped from a 33% to 74%. And that meant that there's a lot that each campus is doing, and if they learned from each other, that they could really improve their scores. So this final report, there was a webinar with it. The webinar and the final report are both available on our website, shaylab.ca. And this final report walks through the findings from the study and the literature on best practice alcohol policies. Each of the 12 campuses also received a personalized feedback about their campus-specific strengths and weaknesses. We met with each campus to go through the results, as well as gave them a slide deck that they could use to present the results to others within the campuses. And this was received really positively by the campuses, and we're still in touch with most of those campuses as they work to adapt, change, update their policies over the last few years. Now, what kind of came out of that, though, was we took 2 years and a $100,000 grant to do this for 12 campuses. But there's over 400 post-secondary institutions in Canada. How are we going to help support them in also evaluating their campus alcohol policies? And so what we sought out additional funding to develop a tool that would take this scoring rubric that we developed and put it into a tool that would allow campuses to conduct their own assessment of their alcohol policies, identifying areas of strength in their policy, identifying areas of weakness, and tracking any of their progress over time in a completely confidential way. So that leads us to the campus alcohol policy tool, which we are launching today. We're thrilled to launch this. I am going to pass it to Stephanie, who's going to walk us through a demo of the tool. And then I'll join you back at the end. All on
Great.
you, Steph.
Thank you. So, presenting the Campus Alcohol Policy Evaluation Tool. When you do register and log in, which is located here at the top right, it'll bring you to this home page. We've really tried to design the tool in a way that's simple, simple language, simple layout, intuitive, easy to use, and with some guided instructions. So when you do arrive here, it shouldn't take you much time to sort of briefly go through the home page and just check out a few of the features. Keep in mind when you do register and log in some cases you might be equipped and able to complete the entire tool on your own. At some campuses, you might want to share one login and collaborate on an evaluation with other members of your institution. So if you are sort of choosing a login, make sure, and you plan to share that, make sure you pick a password that you're open to sharing with other people in your institution. We'd really encourage you to just sort of do one account per institution. So here is the home page. You can either access your evaluation by clicking on the Get Started button or going right to the dashboard. This is where you're going to spend most of your time. Now, I've been testing and piloting the tool for quite some time, so you can see down the left-hand side that I've got quite a few evaluations completed. Yours will look a little less full when you log in. So let's just walk through and take a look. We're going to start a new evaluation. Every time you do start a new evaluation, it'll bring up sort of, again, a recap of the purpose. And really, this is the meat and potatoes right here. This is, I think, an important thing to go through. Again, it seems fairly straightforward, but it's really important that as you get started with an evaluation, you want to gather any relevant existing policy documents and have them on hand. So whether you have a few screens pulled up on your computer or have the policies right on your desk, you're going to want to have those on hand. As well, when you're completing the evaluation, we're really looking at which policies are already written and exist at your campus. Policies that have been written down and documented somewhere, not necessarily those that are being done in practice. We're really looking for for policies that have been documented and are available on campus. You can complete the sections in any order that you want. So depending, again, what position you hold on campus, you might want to choose sort of 3 out of the 10, get those completed, and then pass the torch off to a colleague. We thought that might be a nice feature. Again, pretty intuitive here, but you click Start to start on a new section. If one of the domains is not applicable, you do have the option to mark not applicable, as well as if there's an indicator or a question within a domain that doesn't apply, again, you can hit not applicable, and those scores will then be prorated. Just to sort of circle back to what Kara had mentioned earlier, we've designed this tool to kind of mirror what we had done with the original campus alcohol policy project. So we've got the same 10 domains from there, and this tool is really modeled off of that scoring rubric as well. Once you complete a domain, you'll have the ability to see the scoring breakdown and access the feedback per domain. And then once you've completed a report entirely, you'll be able to export that report. Here's a couple extra little notes down there. It shouldn't take too long. I can't give you an exact time, but there's about 7 to 10 questions per domain. And let's get into it, and I'll just show you so you can get a better idea. If ever you do need to go back to those instructions, you can easily access the instructions here at the Show Instructions tab. So let's get started with availability and access. We're going to hit start. Little recap on what this domain is kind of all about. If at any point in time you get partway through the domain and you run out of time, you have to run off to a meeting, you can always save and exit. So you don't have to complete the entire domain if you don't have all the data to inform it, or if you need to jet off. There's also a notes tab. So again, if you're contributing to completing the evaluation with colleagues, you can leave notes for one another, like, oh, I wasn't really sure, I didn't want to answer this, and then you can access those notes as well. So we'll just sort of go through and do a mixed bag. As we complete the domain, we're going to see the score pop up at the top there. So I'm going to kind of go just freely here. How many licensed establishments do you have on your campus? Let's say more than 10. Do campus licensed establishments begin to sell alcohol before 4? Yes, they do. Do alcohol sales at campus licensed establishments end at 1 a.m. or earlier? We'll say yes to this one. Are there exceptions to your operating hours? Yes, we have exceptions. How many days a week? We'll say 6 days. Do you provide substance-free residence options? Yes, we do. Do you prohibit alcohol use in public places on campus? No, we don't. Do you prohibit alcohol use at campus student recruitment events? Let's say no again. I want you to see the feedback portion a little bit more here. Here's an example of a multiple choice question. So do you have any of the following harm reduction policies to minimize the risk of harm from alcohol in sporting facilities on campus? Let's just go with the top two there. And we've all finished this section, so we're going to hit complete section. A little verification there. You sure? Yes. Wonderful. So that domain is completed. It shows here that our score on that domain was 48%. And so if right away you're really curious to see what that looks like, you can do the drop down on the feedback. And so how we've built the tool is in a way that it shows you what you are already doing well. We do want to celebrate where you've got some great policies in place. So we've reiterated that to you to really reinforce the good aspects of your policy, and just to recap what those are. Below in kind of the yellow or gold, we've sort of put the recommendations here. So again, it's we've reviewed and based on sort of the best practice and evidence-based policies, we have some recommendations to strengthen your policy. So again, these are things to consider, recommendations on how to strengthen your policy if you do want to improve your score. Not that it's about the score, but more about sort of protecting the students on campus. So we've given details, individual details for each area of opportunity, and those are listed here. We can then minimize that feedback. If you are curious to see how the points were allocated, you can go to the scoring breakdown. And so here you see what answer you actually selected in response to the question, and a recap of the question, and the total point score there. The points are weighted, again, based on the evidence and based on policy effectiveness. And this all comes from the Campus Alcohol Policy Project and all of the literature that we reviewed during that project. As we go down, where you didn't achieve full points, there's another recap of the recommendations. So, and we really try to design aesthetically the page to, suit the needs of someone really going through this and trying to break it down. So we've kind of got the different colors mixed in there and the points up at the top to really just show how you've kind of landed on these answers. So I'm just sort of scrolling through here. Here's an example of where we've got the evidence shows that all of these things are important to have and take into consideration, but really the bulk of this question lies within this first answer here, where the evidence shows that prohibiting alcohol at sporting facilities is going to lead to the least amount of harm. Not the most favorite response, but if you ever have questions about this, I would encourage you to access our resources tab, which we'll go to shortly, and review the report, or reach out to us at any point in time. So I'm not going to go through the whole evaluation, as you can imagine, but here you can see you can access each of the 10 domains. Once you have completed, up here you'll get your summary score of the entire evaluation, and you'll be able to export your final report. I'm just going to go to that here. So yeah, here's an example of a completed report. You get that date stamp there, so that way, like I said, if you do one this year, you want to make some improvements over the course of the academic year and try again, you can kind of keep a record of that. Up here you see that final score. This report this evaluation I completed in a way that had a few not applicables included in, so you see that it's only out of 96 points. We didn't include the ones that weren't applicable. And it gives you the full breakdown of all of the domains, the detailed feedback, all at the front end, and then at the back end of the report, you have that detailed scoring breakdown. So it's everything you need here. And you can work off of that and show folks. And I just wanted to finish off by just showing you that, like I said, we do have a resources tab on the site. So you have access to the final report for the Campus Alcohol Policy Project. We've also included a link to the Your Drink, Your Call campaign that we designed in partnership with the CCSA for students on post-secondary campuses. This is a free campaign that's available to implement and applies and is available for any post-secondary institution across the country. And we've also linked to the guidance on alcohol and health. And hey, if there's something else you think we should include as a resource, again, feel free to reach out. The About tab is pretty straightforward, just gives you a little bit more context, and this is how you can sort of reach out and contact us if you have feedback about the tool. If for some reason you do notice a little error or something, let me know. I can easily fix that.
Thank you for that demo, Steph. So hopefully you get a bit of a sense of how it works. It's meant to be incredibly user-friendly, but you can see how it would make sense to make sure you have all your documents at the beginning. You can certainly save it though and come back. And your data is confidential, so no one has access to that data but you. There is an option to allow us to see it so that we can improve the tool, but you can check that when you register. But yeah, it's freely available and meant to be something that can assist you in evaluating your alcohol policies going forward. We encourage people not to get hung up on the score. The score is just a reflection of your strength or weakness in a particular area. And hopefully if people are using it, ultimately there may be some visuals where you can see how you compare to like the average of other campuses, but we need to get some data in there to start with. So like Stephanie said, just to some of those core features, I just wanted to recap. When you register, you can register as shared or individual access. We encourage campuses to kind of have a shared account so that people are working from the same evaluation. You can complete as many evaluations as you want. So if you decide every few years you're updating your policy, you can go in there and take a look. The evidence is up to date as of now, but every 3 to 5 years, we will be in there looking at the evidence and making sure that everything is up to date. So there'll be changes that come along and updates that come along as the evidence evolves. The institutional dashboard will give you your scoring history. Like Stephanie said, you can leave notes for each other. You can save your drafts and return later. The scoring is all automatic and it provides you with tailored recommendations. So everybody's feedback will be different based on how you answered the questions. And if you have any questions or if you need assistance in any capacity in terms of using this as a tool, or if you have questions about your results, certainly reach out to us. There are lots of examples of campuses doing most of these policies in one way or another, and learning from each other is a great way to enhance your own alcohol policy, and we can help support you in that. So that is it for our presentation today. I just want to thank you for attending, for learning about the tool. Please share the tool widely, and again, reach out, let us know if it's working for you. There's sure to be a few bugs. We've done a lot of testing and a lot of piloting, but I'm sure we haven't thought of everything. And so if you have suggestions or if you think there's something strange happening in there, please reach out and let us know so that we can make sure we can fix it right away for people. So we're happy to answer any questions people have.